All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا. ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا. ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today we're continuing our discussion on the 15th word. We started last week, and we started with the verse that says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and we have adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, and we have made them missiles to drive away the evil ones. So if we look carefully at this verse, it's for us to actually understand it. We spent last week discussing what is the lowest heaven and what is the evil ones, and why is the word missiles being used. And I'm only mentioning it again because it's very important to remember that we're not talking about things that we cannot observe or we cannot understand, or that we are forced into believing. Instead, we're talking about things that we can reason, understand, feel, and question. And today the author is going to take us through the 7 steps of this verse. So the author is basically giving us this verse, and he's saying there is a mystery here in this verse, but it's not a mystery that we cannot really comprehend. Instead, we shall use the analogy of the 7 steps or the 7 heavens mentioned in the Quran repeatedly, and see how can we see or how can we find the 7 steps in this particular verse. Today we're starting with the first step, and as I'm reading, please keep the verse in mind and try to always find the relationship between each step and the verse, so that we can really get the meaning of it. So here goes the first step. It says, truth and wisdom require that the heavens have inhabitants appropriate to them as the earth has. Okay, again, truth and wisdom require that the heavens have inhabitants appropriate to them as the earth has. So the author is kind of saying, well, if we're really going to read this verse truthfully or wisely, we need to start seeing that the heavens have inhabitants living in them, just like the earth does. As if he's saying it wouldn't make sense to say that the earth has inhabitants and the heavens don't have any. Instead, he's saying, no, like the earth, the heavens also have inhabitants. And I think the key word here is appropriate to them. So the question is, well, what is appropriate to the heavens? And how can we understand these inhabitants? Since we're kind of not living in the heavens, we're on earth. So how can we understand them? And he continues saying, according to the Sharia, Those various beings are called angels and spirit beings. So what we're calling angels, we're defining them as inhabitants of the heavens. Reality requires it to be thus, for despite its small size and insignificance, the earth being filled with living and conscious beings, then emptied from time to time, and once again repopulated, suggests, indeed makes it clear that the heavens too, in which are magnificent constellations and are like adorned palaces, should be filled with conscious and percipient creatures. So now the author is adding another layer. He's saying reality requires it, that there needs to be a conscious creature living in the heavens. So not only truth and wisdom, but also reality. Like men and jinn, those creatures are spectators of the palace of the universe, the observers of the book of creation, and the heralds of the sovereignty of dominicality. For the universe is arrayed and embellished with innumerable adornments, decorations, and ornaments, and self-evidently requires the thoughtful gazes of those who will appreciate it and wonder at it. Certainly, beauty requires a lover, and sustenance is given to the hungry. However, man and jinn are able to perform only a millionth of this endless duty, this grand viewing, this extensive worship. That is to say, endless sorts of angels and spirit beings are necessary to perform these endless duties and diverse worship. Okay, so what he's saying is, or at least what I think he's saying, well, we have this universe and it's very beautiful. It's ordered, it's structured. Well, whoever made this, whoever makes this art, it's almost like, never mind. Let's not talk about who made the art. The art itself requires that there is someone who is observing it, someone who's appreciating it. Now the author is debating that, okay, yeah, sure, as a man, as a human being, I can appreciate this beauty, but not like an angel or a spirit being. They would be appreciating it, I'm guessing all the time. So I'm just trying to build the author's, or to see the author's reasoning. He's saying, well, it makes sense that there are heavens. It makes sense that there are inhabitants in those heavens that are appropriate to the heavens. And it makes sense that these creatures that we're gonna call angels are doing the worship that is actually that the creation is worthy of. Yeah, I see a hand. Go ahead.
I have a quick question. So it seems like the author is a little bit confused, or maybe that's how I am taking it. So do you think like the author is talking about the space and inhabitants of space, like inhabitants of Moon, Mars, like Venus, like, and the other planets? Or do you think author is actually trying to make sense of the universe or this existence under the light of this verse. And he talks about like a different dimension to the immediate existence that we are experiencing.
So your question is he talking about space in general? Or what was the second part of the question?
Or he's trying to make sense of this existence under the light of this verse and trying to understand like another dimension to it.
Well, if we go back to the verse, again, the verse is saying, we have adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, and we have made them missiles to drive away the evil ones. So if we're gonna, I guess, I would say he's using the verse as a way to kind of introduce this idea of angels. I can't tell for sure if he's talking generally about space or making sense of existence, but I guess this is the first step. So I don't know if actually your question will be better answered in the following steps or not. Yes, Brother Ali, go ahead.
I believe that the author is not speaking really from physical, geographical side of the matter. But as far as the relationship between the beauty and the conscious beings who appreciate this beauty. But fundamentally, usually we know that this author looks at the matter from material side and meaningful side. Material side is reduced to space because we don't I don't think that the space is empty. Most of the people say it's not empty. It has something. Lots of things are created there, like the earth is not empty. But if we are talking about the meaningful side, which the text should be talking about the meaningful side, it means really driving away the evil ones, means evil interpretation of the existence of the universe altogether. I imagined while I was listening to you while we are reading the text, as if we are looking through a telescope. Now, in order to see the creation around me on earth, I don't need a telescope. But if I want to go into the details of the space, I need telescope. As if I am reading a text which has big printings. Maybe all printings are the same size, but as far as my naked eye sees, big printings looks as if I'm looking at the immediate vicinity that I'm living in my environment. It is easy to read. But the more detailed of the earth or the parts or particles of the earth, I need microscope now. So as if I'm reading the further side of the book, which looks like fine print, fine printed, I need magnifying young glass, magnifying glass, so that I can read them. So I have to use the reasoning if there are further and further extension of this text, then I understand, although I cannot reach it, but since this is a text, it must have meaningful sentences in it. Although my capacity cannot read them, the meaning of the text, those there must be a reason why this text, it means the meaningful universe, is created in such a way that it is so, everything is so meaningful, perfectly arranged. From distance, I see that the book is perfectly arranged in paragraphs, chapters, paragraphs, sentences, etc. But if it goes further and further, I say, oh, there must be some other beings who must be able to read them. That's why this book includes these sides as well. So that is why we are asked here to use our reasoning, our capacity to perceive, or perception capacity to perceive what is going on in the universe. So if I see the earth is full of meaningful creatures and conscious beings are created here who can read them, I can extend this understanding by comparison. In the sky also, it is from the far distance, it looks like it is very well arranged, beautified. Everybody loves to look at the sky and see how the galaxies are arranged. We get admired when we see the pictures of the universe in general. And that this beauty should not be wasted. If the one who creates the universe is a wise one, then this one should have wisdom in creating them in a beautiful way. So I'm using this reasoning as the author follows here, that this beauty and meaningful creation exists for me as far as I am concerned, conscious being, I am, you are concerned, human beings are concerned. This meaningful side must function a purpose, which is driving away the satanic ideas. We touched upon it last week a little bit. What is satanic ideas? Then says, this is nothing, there is no meaning. Yeah, there are some things that we can eat and benefit on earth, but the universe is just waste. It means full of matter. What am I going to do with it? It happened to be like this, meaningless. And the author says it shouldn't be. And we have to listen and reason. And also we see that in the revelation, which is supposed to be the speech of the Creator, says, there are angels. It means representing the angelic side of the universe, as if the meaning of the book in the example of. So
sorry, can I interject for a second? So like, then you're saying that, or author, that's what author's saying, that starting from your experience, your own very own experience, since there is a beauty that you experience, there should be a meaning. if there is a meaning, there should be someone who perceives the meaning. So if this is the case, then you cannot limit the existence with the material aspect of it only. There must be something beyond that, which refers to the word sema or heaven. Is that a reasonable statement to make?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and you put it much better than I did. So, as the following part of the paragraph says, beauty, in a summary, beauty requires a lover, and sustenance is given to the hungry. It means if there is food on the table, it means there will be someone who is going to eat them. Otherwise, putting the food there, but no one eats them, and continuously puts the food on the table, no one comes and eat. And the one who does this cannot be called wise. I mean, you can say just wasting their time. So the universe altogether, we don't expect exactly like human beings that there must be some other human beings. Not human beings are on earth. So, for example, the wheat is good for human beings and some other animals as well. But how about the chaff? Just hay. They make hay and give it to the animals. Oh yeah, it is food as well for other creatures. I cannot eat it. Doesn't mean that for example, body side of the plants are meaningless. No, I am going to use the vegetable, but the body side of the plants are good nourishment for other beings. So we have to understand that the universe also, in it is, as we call the sky, space, whatever, all the galaxies and the whole universe looks like a book, and everywhere must be meaningful. And since there is food for thought, there must be conscious beings doing that. And these conscious beings are reading them, and this meaningful side of the creation of the sky makes it a tools of rejecting the idea, the satanic idea, which represents denying the meaningful side of it and reducing the universe to matter only. So this fight on earth is going on. Those people who call themselves materialist, and they interpret the universe as having no meaning. Those people who say, no, it is so meaningful, you cannot say that. So everybody tries to bring the evidence, and we can see that meaningful side of the universe, as far as our relationship is concerned, is so explicit in front of our eyes, whereas reducing the existence to matter turns the universe and existence into meaninglessness. This is very real fight going on at the ideological level, if you like, in this earth, and that we can conclude that there must be the same thing going on in the sky. That is why we should not really ignore the conscious side of the creation. So conscious beings or conscious side of the creation, consciousness, requires everything must be beautiful and meaningful. Meaningfulness of the universe requires conscious observers and those people who perceive the meaning in them. Thank you.
Thank you. As you were speaking, I was asking myself the question, well, what would this mean to me? Like, why would it matter that there is someone who's actually appreciating the beauty all the time? And I realized, well, it gives me a sense of security that the art that is made by the artist is not, or is continuously being appreciated. I don't know why this gives me a sense of security, but I feel like I'm grateful for it, because then the art, as you were saying, is not wasted. The art is not ignored. And I'm not given the same task to appreciate the art all the time. I'm given the task to appreciate it as much as I can and as best as I can. So I felt like if in moments where I do appreciate the art, it's almost like I'm joining those conscious beings at this particular moment. And it's not me appreciating the art and in connection with the artist, it's almost like me in connection with everything in the universe. And it's almost like being connected to consciousness altogether in this particular moment. And it feels nice that every time I mention God's names, that there is someone already repeating those names, or there is already someone who's appreciating the art. I don't know why it feels good, and I don't know why it gives me a sense of security, but it does. Yeah. So I'm glad we're exploring this this area of meaning or conscious beings. I see a hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just like thinking loud. I'm not sure if that's really an answer, but I think the way that author approaches the subject, it is very like systematic, and it convinced the human, it convinced the reason, so it is logical. So it kind of fits with human nature. I'm not sure if that's the reason why you feel like peace in it, but if it was otherwise, I think it could be conflicting, right? So like, for example, like do you see anyone in this life that spends like extensive amount of time and energy to create something and then destroys it without serving any kind of purpose? Why would anyone even do that? Like, if someone does that, like, you just consider that person insane. So I think that same logic applies to the universe. So like, you do experience the beauty, and if there is a beauty, there should be a meaning. And if there was no one who can perceive the meaning, then what is the point of like creating a meaning at the first place? It kind of goes against human logic.
Yes, thank you very much. I think also maybe the idea that if there's someone always appreciating the art, you feel like then that means the gallery is never closed. So there's a sense of like no matter how late you are, you're always going to get an opportunity to see the art. So having someone or acknowledging that there are conscious beings that are appreciating the art all the time, also like means that the gallery is always open, which is nice, because like you said, who would just create art for the sake of creating it and then not having it be appreciated or not having meaning in it. All right, anyone else want to add, or anyone else have any questions? Okay, let's try to continue the first step. So it continues to say, as is indicated by certain narrations and the wisdom in the order of the universe, some kinds of traveling bodies, from planets to drops of water, are the mounts of one kind of an angel. It may be said that they mount them with God's permission and tour and gaze upon the manifest world. It also may be said that one type of animal bodies from the birds of paradise, called the green birds, in a hadith, and again, as the screen shows, this is where the hadith was found. Two flies are the aircraft for a sort of a spirit being. They enter them at God's command, travel around the physical universe, observing the miracles of creation through the windows of the senses of the animals' bodies. The Creator, who continuously creates subtle life and luminous percipient beings from dense earth and turbid water, surely also creates conscious beings suitable for spirit and life, from those seas of light and even from the oceans of darkness. And he creates them in great abundance. The existence of angels and spirit beings have been proved with the certainty of 2 + 2 = 4 in my treatise entitled Nuqta, or point, and in the 29th word. If you wish, you may refer to them. So we're kind of saying, like the argument of, or like the reasoning of, because there is art, there is an artist, we're also saying, because there is art, there are people observing, I'm so sorry. There are beings that are observing and appreciating the art all the time. And it had to be their only duty, so that they're not distracted from that duty at any point. This sounds reasonable to me. Is everybody else comfortable with this idea, with this reasoning? If you're not, please let us know. Go ahead, Brother Adi.
Quick comment. As we see that our body is made up of matter here. Out of matter, unconscious matter, my body is made, and my body is given consciousness that I am living with. I am very much aware of its existence. So I say, look, I am made up of matter, but I am conscious. So, for example, book is made up of paper matter, but it has meaning inscribed in it. For example, my voice that you hear here, made up of just waves, again, matter, the vibrations of the matter, and you hear meaning in it. Oh, that is an exciting, amazing creation. So the one who makes it in front of my eyes, and I can assure that I can certify it by my own experience that matter is endowed with meaning, and make the existence precious, meaningful, not for nothing. For example, if someone brings on a land and puts lots of material there, different kinds of material, bricks and paints and wood, plastic nowadays mostly, lots of material, different kinds, and doesn't make the house. What you say, this man is crazy. So when we look at the universe, if there is no meaningful result from it, it looks crazy to create or give existence to the galaxies. That is why some materialist scientists have to claim that the universe is meaningless. Why? They see themselves meaningless. That is a very important point, a very important point. They see themselves meaningless. At the end, they will die and disappear. What is the meaning in their existence? Nothing, no purpose. So that is their interpretation. But we have to be honest people. We should not contradict ourselves, and we have to say that I am fully satisfied. My existence is meaningful. Why not the existence of the universe and the galaxies should not be meaningful? So if they are meaningful, we discussed earlier, there must be a conscious beings who can appreciate it. That's what the Quran calls angels. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead. iPhone, go ahead.
I have a question. So I think this line of reasoning makes sense if you are able to see the beauty in in the universe at the first place. But we know that there are a lot of people, actually, when you look at the universe, they see constant, how should I say this? It is designed in a way that it constantly produces death. So like animals, like some animals eating the other animals eating the plants, like human beings, like it's like constantly creating evil and chaos like on earth. And in that sense, there are people argues that where is the beauty in the universe? And once you take that stand and base your reasoning on that, the conclusion that you're going to arrive is going to be quite different than what is being discussed here. So I guess the question is why some people are able to see beauty in this existence and some others just they all see like what they see is like evil and nothing else.
Go ahead, Brother Ali.
This why question is beautiful. Yeah, we say, why such people do that? Lately, what attracted my attention in the Quran describes denial for Iblis, for other human beings, for obstinate objectors of the prophets, the enemies of the messengers, etc. They deny. Why? The Quran says arrogance. tekabbur. And for example, let me remember the words. Oh, no, doesn't come to my mind. So, yeah, for example, Satan or some arrogant people, they denied because they took arrogant attitude and denied. Now, denial doesn't give the result of arrogance, just the opposite. Arrogance is the source of denial. If I decide that I don't want to submit myself, my existence to anything else, I have to declare my independence in existence, not independence of the arrogant other people from arrogant people, but independent existence from other people and submitted to the creator of the universe. So when I submit myself to the truth that, look, I cannot claim that I existed by myself. That is obvious, so perfect my creation is. I'm not a perfect person as far as my responsibilities are concerned, but my existence is really beyond perfection, whatever the word, I cannot find any word to express this understanding. So it is beyond imagination, perfect. So if I accept this, then I cannot deny the reality at all. So denial doesn't have a real logical substance, really. These the excuses the materialist scientists bring forward are just excuses because they don't want to submit themselves. That is, I don't know their heart, but only way of explaining that if anybody doesn't want to submit his existence, don't misunderstand me, his existence, the way he exists, to its source of existence, this person has to deny, has to take the denial of the creatorship of a creator who is consciously giving existence and designing the universe in a perfect, beautiful, meaningful way. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, iPhone.
So what Brother Ali said reminded me the very first word of Nursi's writings. So he defined there two different approach or two different. I think in this story there are two different persons. One take a certain attitude, the other one takes a different attitude. So you can then in that case you can take such an attitude and be one of those persons in the story, or that story can be taken in a way that both those persons represent something within yourself, and the question is which side you are going to listen to when you approach your experiences here. So human being, there are two aspects to human being, and it is up to the human free will which attitude you are going to take.
Yes, I think I can add from my own understanding that normally if someone wants to see or chooses to call what's happening as ugly versus beautiful. I don't think beauty is in the idea of like, oh, the flower was made so perfectly. That's not beauty. I mean, because for me, I would define it more like just acknowledging that the flower was made and how easily it feels that it was made and how it fits everything else and how it's making me feel a sense of joy. So at the end of the day, the beauty is not at the, objective facts of like what color is it or how does it smell. So I think if someone is going to choose calling something ugly, it's more like the perception itself is not acknowledging a side in which it really does not leave you with any other option but to call it beautiful. So I think it's almost a choice, whether intentional or unintentional, I don't know. But if it's like someone who's choosing not to see beyond the obvious, yeah, sure, it's just a flower, like any other flower. It has its own characteristics, but it's not that big of a deal. Versus someone who's choosing to really see beyond the flower in the context of the entire garden or entire creation. Okay, maybe we can move on to the second step. So it says, the earth and the heavens are connected to one another, like two countries under a single government. These are important relations and transactions between them. Okay, so now we move from talking about the inhabitants of the heavens to the relationship between the heavens and the earth. They're connected to each other, and there's an important relationship between them, and there are transactions happening between them. So things necessary for the earth, like light, heat, blessings, and mercy in the form of rain, come from the sky. That is, they are sent. Interestingly enough, he's including the word blessings and the word mercy when describing rain. I know that there's a Quranic verse that particularly describes rain as mercy, or that there is a relationship between the two, or maybe a hadith, I might be mistaken. But it's interesting enough, he's not talking about rain as just drops of water. He's saying rain is something that has blessings and mercy. According to the consensus of the revealed religions, which are founded on revelation, and the agreement of all those who uncover the mysteries of the universe, relying on what they have witnessed, the angels and spirit beings descend to the earth from the skies. From this, it may be understood through a surmise, please correct me if I'm wrong pronouncing this word, so certain it can almost be felt that for the inhabitants of the earth, there is a way to ascend to the heavens. Okay, so now he's taking us to actually start seeing the angels and spirit beings as beings that can travel between the heavens and the earth. Okay, which I think is then related to the idea of the relationship between heavens and earth and how the transactions happen. And this is why there is blessings and mercy in the form of rain that come from sky. Okay, interesting. Indeed, everyone's mind, imagination, and gaze perpetually rise to the skies, So too, having discarded all heaviness, do the spirits of the prophets and saints rise there with God's permission. And having stripped off their bodies, the spirits of the dead. Since those who become light and subtle rise to the heavens, for sure, one sort of the inhabitants of the earth and the air, who are clothed in what resembles a body and are light and subtle like spirits, may rise there. Okay, this is a bit difficult for me, the second paragraph. I'm not sure what the author is trying to communicate here. Please go ahead.
Let me try what I understood from it. Of course, we are not speaking here for sure. We are just exchanging our views so that we can have an access to what the reality of our life is. So that is my guess and my trial. I say there are things are coming. For example, my best example is, for example, I am looking at the screen now, and there is something on the screen you are sharing. The moderator, our friend, is sharing, and they look at me, I look at them, but they look at me as if materially, and I look at them as if by my eyes. But in reality, we know that this signs on the screen has meaning. And my eyes sees the matter, but my consciousness, my reasoning, intelligence reads them, and communication starts. It's so interesting. Although, for example, the moderator is not here in my machine, but I communicate with what she's sharing with me. It means what she has really presented to us. And I am communicating with the moderator through what I see in the screen. So when I see that the things are coming from the sky, as a conscious being, I respond back to this meaningful relationship between the earth and the sky. And I say, whoever created the earth is letting me know that he is the owner of the sky as well. It's an immediate example is rain is coming. A little bit more subtle example is meaningful appearance, beauty of the universe is coming to me, and I am communicating with it, with the meaning, and I admire it. People, especially these artists, love drawing the pictures of the sunset and sunrise because they are admirable, and the beauty of the skies are appreciated by all people or human beings. Even they may see that the creation is, and some of them may see that the creation is meaningless, but they love to watch it. So, for example, a materialist astronomer or those people who study cosmology, whatever, the science, why do you think they spend whole their life trying to understand? If there is if these things are meaningless beings, why do you bother to understand them? And how do you communicate with them? You invest billions of dollars in order to get deeper and deeper into the sky. Why? I wonder. Something is interesting going on. And you're responding back to them as wandering conscious being is a communication. It means if our consciousness is perceiving something meaningful, that means something meaningful happening in the sky as well. If I cannot see it, if I cannot read it, there must be some other creatures who are reading it. And this meaningful relationship stones, as the Quran says, stones the satanic ideas, which claims that the universe is just a lump of matter. And there's a clash there. It cannot be jump of matter. Your very profession proves that it is meaningful, and you are trying to understand the meaning and make sense of it. This is an obvious contradiction of the materialist people who study physics and astronomy and cosmology, biology. If it is just meaningless, why bother then? And all artists, poets, literature people, they are communicating with the creation emotionally. They receive something, they respond back to the creation in any form. And then turn out, in this century, we strangely hear that this universe is meaningless. It is wonderful, but meaningless. No purpose. Well, I think human beings can never or could never fall into this apparent, obvious contradiction historically. Even the primitive people cannot do that. They are not doing that. They use some sort of things and communicate with the spirit of the beings, etc., through various ways, but at least they are being honest to the way they are created. But these people are obvious traitors of the reality. They are really horrible attitude they are taking. It is impossible to imagine to be in this position, but unfortunately, some people, out of arrogance, put themselves in this position. I'm sorry for them. Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation. Okay, so far what we've talked about today is the first two steps of the 7 steps. And the first step was concerning the angels and how we can reason their existence. And the second step was concerning the relationship between the earth and heavens. And I really like the example of the rain, of how it's something that, yes, it needs things that come from earth, like light and heat, or not come from, but we can see in earth, like light and heat. And it also needs blessings and mercy, which if I use the analogy or the reasoning of this writing, it's almost like these are things that come from heaven. I think we can stop here at the second step, and then next week we can start off from the third step. Any questions or reflections before we close? Go ahead, Brother Ali.
I am surprised to hear this. Interesting, very interesting. The angels and spirit beings descend to the earth from the skies, and the prophets and spirits may rise there as well. There's with God's anyways. It is interesting that spirit goes back to the sky. I think the sky represents here the communication between human consciousness and the meaningful side of the universe. If human body dies, when it dies, not if, really everybody will die, including myself. When I die, my body is lifeless, but my spirit is still must be in communication with its meaningful side of the universe. So meaningful side of the universe is apparently is the meaning, the book. Information in the book is coming from the mind of the author. Meaningful side of the universe comes from the knowledge of its creator. So when I communicate with the meaning, my spirit communicates it, not my body. My body doesn't communicate with anything. So my spirit communicates with the meaningful side of the universe, and my spirit is explained here as the prophets and saints rise there, which means those people who appreciate the beauty and respond back to the meaning, definitely their spirit will go back to its origin of existence and his knowledge. That is why we hear in the Quran that everybody will be returned to where it came from. That is one of the meaning of these beautiful verses. Many times you will be returned to God. It means your spirit. You will be returned to God. Definitely when you die at the end, and the universe also will be returned back to its creator, because for example, the meaning of the information in the book goes back to its author's knowledge. Even we burn the book, but we cannot burn knowledge in it, information in it. There's no way. So our body may die, but the side of me who responded back to the meaningful side of the universe never dies. So I have to say, we all go back to our origin of existence. And before we die, we should consciously choose to communicate, always to be in contact with the communication of our creator and his information, his knowledge that he reveals to us through the book of the universe.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all for coming and participating. See you all inshallah next week. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.